Hi everyone. Hi Danny. We're talking about early modern Africa right now. That's the topic of this particular lesson. And well, basic subject for this lesson is a complex story of European expansion into Central West Africa in particular. So everyone should keep in mind that we're dealing with a particular part of Africa. You can try to figure out where that is. That would be good for us all. We can take a look at the various maps that we've provided as well. They're historical sources in themselves, and we've got, well, maybe one here in the background that we can talk about, Willem Blau's map from the 1630s that shows a diversity of African cultures and a partly accurate map and a partly imaginary map of Africa. So we've got various perspectives. We're dealing with a European perspective. I'm trying to understand Africa in a developing relationship. What's the question that everyone should pay attention to for this week?
Well, really, we're faced with a challenge this week, a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to face this kind of challenge several times in the course, because we are dealing with a group of people here who are not literate, the Africans, the tropical Africans. And so we don't have very many good sources.
Written sources, in other words.
Written sources. We have lots of archaeological sources. We have lots of artistic sources, but we don't have literary sources of any sort from Africans talking about their own societies.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. In fact, this map is a good example of that. If you look, you can see from the map, it's a fairly accurate outward depiction of Africa. But as Mike said, much of the stuff in the middle, some of it's accurate, and some of it's just plainly and simply made up. It's imaginary. And so that's a bit of a problem. So, and that's also tricky for us because we look at it and we say, it looks like Africa, must be accurate. It can fool us.
Yeah.
And our written sources can play a bit of that game too. They look objective, they look like clear descriptions, but we have to keep in mind that they're written from a perspective. They're written from a particular perspective, and it's not the perspective of the people we're actually trying to understand. We're actually trying to understand African societies and how, or to what extent, can we learn about African societies from European sources. And so this is going to be a big challenge for us this week. You'll see a lot more detailed questions in the lesson plan when you get to the lesson plan. Some particular questions to think about with some particular sources. Some images that you can look at that will help us in some sense understand what the Europeans were seeing. Also, one or two of those images will help us to understand that the Europeans are kind of translating it into what we could call a European vernacular. They're giving you an African scene, but it kind of looks like Europe with African people in it. And so, and again, you get that kind of sense of they're trying to fit it into their own worldviews. And again, that reminds us that it's not really about Africa. So we need to think about that question of sources a fair bit this week.
Putting information about Africa into a European vernacular. And just for clarification, vernacular is the language of everyday speech, everyday European speech, in other words. What we have to do as historians, thinking about our job of historical analysis, historical thinking, that's what we're talking about in the toolbox, is being aware of our perspectives when we analyze the sources. But what we want to try to do from our perspective is make sense of a very different world.
Right.
But two historical thinking skills that everyone's going to be focusing on this week again, the analysis of evidence, primary source evidence particularly.
As we've been doing.
And then what we can learn from those sources about various perspectives. So who writes a particular source, when and where, that's important for understanding perspective. And I think everyone else can make a lot of sense of this basic question about what, if anything, you can learn about African from European sources by just digging into those sources.
Yeah, and I think just to set us up a little bit further down the road, we're going to see this again. We're going to see indigenous North Americans who, again, do not have a written literacy.
Yeah.
And so, again, we'll be looking at those civilizations through European eyes. So that general question of perspective and looking at primary sources is going to be very important for us in this course.
Yeah, and a theme of encounters and
Absolutely.
layers of historical evidence and memory. Big things.
Big themes. Enjoy.
Have fun.